Welcome to the Over-the-Phone Interpreter Services webinar training. Let's get started. The Over-the-Phone Interpreter Service is a program of the IRS Stakeholders Partnerships Education Communication, or SPEC. As part of their commitment to servicing multilingual and limited English proficient communities, IRS SPEC is offering over-the-phone translation interpretation services to VITA clients. The service is currently available in 120 languages. In order to participate, sites will need to obtain their site-specific OPI PIN that's assigned to their organization. They also need a landline or mobile phone that's capable of three-way calling. Volunteers can actually use their own cell phones. And lastly, they will need the OPI tracking sheet provided to them by IRS SPEC, which is used for reporting purposes. More on that later. So how do you use the OPI service? Listen carefully. The process begins when a certified volunteer calls the tax client. Then the volunteer simultaneously places a call to the interpreter line at 1-888-563-1155. The line is available 24/7. Next up, the volunteer will merge the call so that they are on the phone with the tax client and the interpreter service at the same time. Of course, if you're working with the tax client in person, you would skip steps 1 and 3 and simply place your call directly to the interpreter line and wait until you're prompted for step 4, which is that you'll be asked to enter the OPI PIN number that's assigned to your organization by IRS SPEC. Next, the volunteer will select the language needed. 1 for Spanish, 2 for Creole, 3 for Mandarin, 4 for Korean, 5 for Vietnamese, and so on and so forth. For any language not listed here, you press 0 to speak with an operator, who will then connect you to an interpreter who can help you in the language that you need. And here is a full list of the languages that are offered. There are interpreters available in 120 different languages. So once you've selected the appropriate language, the next step is to begin noting the interpreter's name and PIN number that they provide you. Once you are connected with the interpreter and you've noted their name and PIN, you can proceed to ask whatever questions you need to ask the taxpayer, and the interpreter will translate the conversation. Make sure you speak slowly and clearly and be patient with the interpreters. The last step is for the volunteer or whoever used this service to complete the OPI log as soon as possible and make sure to turn it into their site coordinator. Reporting is a very important part of using the service. So first things first, your OPI log for your program is going to be due on Mondays at 12 noon Eastern Time. The report is going to request things like your site name and SIDN, as well as your organization's city and state. They also want to know about the volunteer or staff members who placed the call, specifically their name and their phone number. They want to know the reason for the call, which you'll select from a drop-down menu. For example, intake, tax prep, quality review, other with explanation, as well as the language that was needed. The call date, time of call, and duration, all in minutes, meaning how much time was spent with the interpreter. This is going to be different from the total call time since there will be time spent on hold, and they do want to know how much time is spent on hold in seconds while you wait to connect to an interpreter. Lastly, they'll want to know the interpreter's name and their interpreter ID number or PIN number, which should have been noted at the beginning of the call. There's also room to provide miscellaneous comments, such as you discovered that the return is out of scope, the call dropped and you had to call back, etc. For you visual learners, here is a glimpse at what the weekly report spreadsheet looks like. It has columns for each question I just stated a moment ago. And I just want to remind you that it's due weekly on Mondays at 12 noon. Here are some tips for using the OPI service. You want to eliminate background noise so the interpreters can hear you as clearly as possible. You're going to want to moderate your rate of speech. In other words, speak slowly so interpreters can understand everything that you're saying. And like I said earlier, you're going to want to be patient. There will not be a busy signal when you're on hold, so we're told. But you will be connected with the next available interpreter, so patience is key. Some tips for the reporting of OPI service use. Don't combine calls in the log. when you're completing your weekly report, be sure to create an individual entry for each instance a call is placed through the OPI line, even if that call was dropped or didn't yield an ideal result. Each volunteer should also maintain their own weekly OPI log that the site coordinator will then merge and consolidate the OPI data for the week at their site and send to their relationship manager. It might be easier to keep track of things daily because things get pretty busy at our sites. So your organization might want to ask your volunteers to update those records daily. And that's it. It may seem like a lot, but this is one way that we can do our part to ensure that our important work and this important service is accessible to our non-English speaking neighbors throughout the state. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me directly or to any member of the CASH team for assistance. Thanks. We hope you'll use the service.